7 o'clock. We'll wait for his cue.
Good evening and welcome to the Board of Education meeting. If you could please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
May I have an approval of the agenda, please?
So moved.
Second.
Any edits? All in favor? Opposed? Motion carried. And an approval of the minutes from August 11th, please?
So moved.
Irene? And Val, thank you. Any edits? All in favor? Opposed? Motion carried. And our special meeting on August 31st, if I could have a motion, please? Ted and Robin, thank you. Any edits to that? All in favor? Opposed? Motion carried.
One abstention.
Oh,
I was not there that day.
thank you very much. And you're abstaining as well, Val. Thank you. You have that, Deb? Okay, thanks. All right. Board of Education reports. We have meetings on the table. We started officially last week with legislative and board leadership, which was great to see everyone live at the DoubleTree. But we have some meetings coming up. We have board leadership again in November 4th. Executive committee, next meeting is the 7th of October. Information exchange, our next meeting is the 23rd of September. And Val, do you want to report out on legislative from last week, since it was our first meeting?
So last week we wanted to go over our priorities for this year. And to be honest with you, we're not really quite sure, because we feel like even if we made a very specific list of priorities, they could be very different in another week and certainly in the spring. So we wanted to focus on, first of all, building relationships with and also educating our new legislators. We know for sure we'll have a handful of Monroe County will have a handful of new legislators coming in next January. And so we want to make sure that we're on board with them prior to them taking office. We're hoping to meet with them maybe in December, whether it's virtually or in person. We're not sure. And typically our visit for Albany in December, we meet with State Ed and we meet with Department of Budget. We are not going to be going to Albany in December. Our members have responded that they're not comfortable going to Albany. They're also not comfortable riding on a bus together. We don't know what's going to happen in the spring. We'll have to play that by ear. So we are instead, Sherry set up a meeting with our regions, our local regions, which will be our November meeting. We'll be discussing what we want to talk to them about at our October meeting. And if anybody wants to attend that meeting, all board members are welcome, and just sign up through Deb for that meeting if you'd like to. I can't remember what day it is. Oh, actually, it's the day after the election.
Right.
Now I think about it. Yeah, November. Yeah. So if anyone's interested, we'd be happy to have you. But for our priorities, we're just going to focus on education. We also, obviously, we're going to look at foundation aid and mandates and things like that. They're also, and I know Darren and his team do a fantastic job of giving us some visuals and things like that to share with our legislators. We're definitely going to be looking for that this year, and possibly maybe sooner than later. It depends on what happens, what we decide to do with our regents, and maybe educating our new legislators, hopefully this winter. I think that's about it. We discussed a little bit of our position papers and talking points, but Kim is still on that committee, so we're still sort of trying to figure those out.
Thank you. That's great. And Darren, just to let you know that they did say within the context of that meeting that simple bullet points of what we need is better for them, because the more we give them, the less they read. So.
And it sounds like, since Amy is the president, that a lot of this is going to default to you.
Thanks, Darren. I would love pictures. That would be great. Thanks, Val. Next labor relations meeting is the 30th of September. Legislative committee next meeting is the 7th of October. Steering committee, next meeting is the 28th of October, and community outreach is to be determined. We did actively work on the papers that I forwarded to the board about COVID, so you should all have copies of that, talking points about COVID and reopening schools. Other meeting reports, none. And dates to remember, we have a board tour coming up this week on Thursday. If I could just have a show of hands of who will be at that tour. Okay, so everybody, Renee?
I can let you.
Okay, no problem. Okay. And our next scheduled board meeting is Wednesday. Just mark that on your calendar. It's a Wednesday, the 30th of September. Okay, financial report. Darren?
Thank you. First item is auction of equipment or scrap of equipment. Board Policy 5410 states that the superintendent may dispose of property in a manner that brings the most financial benefit to the district. Historically, for the last, I believe it's 5 years, we've used the Teesworth auction for the operations and maintenance equipment. We have 6 pieces here, and it's usually proven to be very useful for us.
May I have a motion to approve, please? Thanks, Irene. And Pete? Any questions? All in favor? Opposed? Motion carried.
Sure. There's been certainly some confusion around property tax bills as they came in the last couple of weeks. And so Darren is going to take a few minutes, and I appreciate his efforts with us, is to kind of walk the board through the property tax rate calculation. And then certainly the presentation will be posted on our website shortly after the board meeting. So thank you, Darren, for taking something very confusing and making it much more understandable.
Okay. Thank you. And I might move a little more quickly through this for your purposes, because most of you have been through this, and this is designed, as Mike said, to be on the website to help those who have not seen as much.
Darren, is that like that?
Yes, it is. Let's see. There we go. So just a real quick, if you will, just some terminology. The tax rate collection process is pretty complex. The spreadsheet has about 100 numbers on it, and really the school district is only responsible for one number out of all of that. Everything else is provided to us. We developed the budget in the spring. Obviously, it was later this year, but most of the information comes to us in the July or very early August timeframe. This year, the state and the town assessors and then the county were making changes as late as last Friday, or trying to anyway, and we were already printing tax bills and having them out. So with that said, we'll move forward to the taxable value. That's what the assessors do when they go through in each township and come up with the assessment of the properties. The focal point for this year is the equalization rate. And the equalization rate is established by the state. And basically what happens is the state looks at what the assessor says the assessed value is of the property, and they determine whether they think if it's reasonably close to market value or not. If it's not, they assume a factor or a rate to that. Anything less than 1 means that the property is not at market value, and the farther away from 1, the farther away it is from that market value. The reason they go through that process is we have to find a way to take our total tax levy of $107 million and allocate that to each one of the 6 towns within the district. And this is how we do that. Per the law, we figure out the full value assessment, which is based on the equalization rate, and then each town, the percentage they are of the total number. That's how much of the tax rate the town owes, or what I call the tax load. That number is divided by the taxable assessed value that we just got done talking about, and as you see on your tax bill, and you come up with a rate per $1,000 of assessed value. So overall, ours is about $26.60. So I know there's a lot of numbers here. I'll try to go through it pretty quickly. Concentrate on the chart on the left-hand side for now for a sample school district. And we're assuming that this school is trying to raise $200,000 in their tax levy. There's 3 towns in the district. their taxable assessed values, and then that first row, and it totals $2 million for all 3 towns. In year 1, all 3 towns are at full assessed value, or 1.0. That's the equalization rate. So their apportionment is the same ratio, if you will, as it was at the taxable assessed. So town A has about 50%, 35 for the other, and 15 for town C. So it adds up to 100. And when you factor that out, you see how much each town has to pay of the taxes in total. And again, that adds up to the $200,000 up above. That's why it's got the same color shading. So the tax rate, you can see for all towns is $100 because they all have the same equalization rate. And when you multiply it times the taxable value, how much each one pays is different. But again, it adds up to that tax levy. So moving over to the right, the only thing that's changing here, not the tax levy, that we're still trying to collect the same $200,000. The taxable assessed values are exactly the same. But the state determined that, okay, in year 2, it's not close enough to market value, so they changed the equalization rates on 2 of the towns. That makes the apportionment go up for towns A and B more substantially so than town A. And the result is you can see the difference in the percentage of how much of the total tax levy each one of those towns possesses. So therefore, the tax rates change. And if you go to the very bottom, you can see what happens. Town A actually has a decrease in the tax bill. Town B has a 9% increase and a 1% decrease for the town that didn't have any change in assessment. And this is an example of what happened with us. How the taxes got distributed to the towns changed. And because of the equalization rates decreasing for Parenton, for example, they ended up getting a substantially larger slice of the pie. So why did this happen? It's not unusual for the equalization rates to change. It's not unusual for a township to not have a few years between revaluations or reassessments. They use the terms interchangeably. The district I worked in prior to here, it was many years since 2 of the towns had a reevaluation, so their their equalization rate was like 30, 40%. So they had a tax rate of $60, $70 per thousand, but the taxable value in the house was ridiculously low. So it multiplies out to be a similar value. But what happened this year is the state in March told the assessors, those of you that are working on a reassessment, we want you to not work or close down your offices. You don't have to submit the paperwork. Some of them had already done it. Some of them were real close. Some of them took advantage of it. I'm not sure. Then the state assumed that they weren't going to do the revaluation, and they adjusted these equalization rates. In the summer, we're handed the assessments by the assessors in each one of the towns, and the state gives us these equalization rates, and we have to apply that. So again, it caused some strange or different fluctuations in what the towns possess. Brighton, for example, their equalization rate did not change, so they actually have a smaller piece of the pie than they did the year before. So Parenton, those in Parenton seem to have the biggest impact. Their tax bills, if they didn't have anything change with their assessment, they didn't build an addition on their house or something, they're looking at about 5.6, 5.7% increase in their tax bill. And then there's a couple of towns where they might actually see a decrease. So the bottom line, if people ask you, I would just try to keep it simple and say that it's a change in the distribution. You can even use the example, you and I owe somebody $100. We both owe half of it. And then next year somebody says, Renee owes 60% and Darren owes 40%. She pays more, and it's basically the same kind of thing. The district did not change the tax levy. It's exactly what we said it would be back in June when the voters voted. It's not a penny more than what the tax cap formula allows us to do. It's just some changes with these numbers. It's not totally unheard of. It happened here about 7 or 8 years ago, similar, just because of, in this area, we tend to stay pretty on top of the reassessments, the assessors do. But a few years ago, it got far enough for 2 towns, and the equalization rate came down. So on the bottom there's a link that can take you right to the Office of Real Property Taxes. New York State, that there's a nice chart and pamphlet that explains all this as well, so if people don't want to take it from us, they can go right to the source. So if there's any questions, I'd be more happy to try to answer them.
Darren, I have a quick question. Given that it has to do with the equalization rates and the changes in the equalization rates, even if COVID didn't happen, this still could have occurred. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay. Thank you.
Thanks, Darren.
Yeah. Just make sure the mic's on.
Thanks. So I just wanted to bring to your attention that with our push to bring technology to the remote learners, we kind of emulated what many schools that have had one-to-one initiatives in the last few years have done, and we are offering to our parents what I call a technology protection plan, and it ties into the board policies that relate to the acceptable use of technology and the use of school materials. So the second page is just simply a parent affirming that they understand their responsibilities with having the technology, such as using it for appropriate purposes. They're responsible for the loss or damage to it. If they elect to be in this technology plan for $40 for the year, it's covered from damage, stolen, if it's stolen, as long as they get a police report, and loss from that. And then what we do is we kind of have a sliding scale. If it's the first incident, it's a $25 deductible. The second incident, $50. Beyond that, they would have to pay the full cost. From talking with Matt, we have more than 800 units out there right now. Most of them are in the 500-plus range. So we think this is a great protection for people, as well as a way to help mitigate some of the costs for the school district in the future.
I just have a quick question, Darren. For those who may not be able to afford the insurance,
Yes.
is there,
They can request a waiver, and we're granting that to anybody that qualifies for a free and reduced lunch program.
wonderful.
Okay.
Thank you.
So I want to thank Matt and his team. They did a great job this week of putting this all on the website. It should go live tomorrow. And so parents will be able to go in and fill everything out online if they wish, and they can pay for it through the payment portal. We're also going to mail it out hard copy to everyone as well.
Great.
And then the last thing is a real quick good news item. Your board policy says that change orders in excess of $50,000 require approval, but it's written towards the event of spending money. So I just wanted to bring to your attention that the roof project that we just completed in this building, I do have a change order for $80,000, but it's a credit, so it's money back to the district. So I did not bring that to you for approval because we're not requesting to spend money, but I wanted to bring to your attention that we are getting money back. Thank you.
That's great news. Thank you. Okay, moving on to human resources. Mike?
Thank you. First for your consideration is the certificated staff report. As part of that, it's not a vote today, but there is a first reading for a 10-year. Normally those happen at the end of the year, but if someone either starts mid-year or they had a break in service, that can put off the typical 3 or 4 years, and that's what happened here. So it's a first reading. Then in addition to that, we have some of our staff changes as we're finishing up the hiring for the year, this year being a little different than most as we're figuring all the pieces right out at the end. So if there's any questions, I'm happy to answer them.
Thank you. May I have a motion to approve the professional staff report? Thanks, Irene. Deb, you can choose. Any questions? No? All in favor? Opposed? Motion carried.
Second for your consideration is the support staff report. It's less lengthy because the positions tend to be filled on a 12-month basis.
May I have a motion to approve? Thanks, Ted. And Robin? Any questions? All in favor? Opposed? Motion carried.
Thank you.
Thanks, Mike. Special education report. Elizabeth is not.
Elizabeth is not here, but on her
I see.
behalf, I wanted to let you know it's on the consent agenda.
Thank you. Thanks, Pat. Superintendent's report. Mike.
It's almost like you've done that before, Pat. There is not a need for an executive session this evening. For your consideration is approval of the revised 2020-2021 school calendar. We talked about this at a board meeting, but it was never brought up for a official vote. So for your consideration is the revised calendar, which reflects a later start date for us this year. I'm sorry, an earlier start date for us this year. Sorry, a later start date for students, an earlier start date for staff.
Is that your final
That's
answer?
my final answer.
Okay.
Sticking with it.
I'll make the motion for his final answer.
Thanks, Ted. May I have a second? Thanks, Irene. Any questions?
Jeez.
All in favor? Opposed? Motion carried.
Seems like forever ago that we created that.
What if we didn't approve that?
I'd be in trouble.
Yep.
So I'd like to just start with some updates on very positive news. First, the Buffalo Bills won very easily yesterday and on track for the Super Bowl this year. More important than that, I'd also like to share that today we received a $250,000 scholarship donation for our urban suburban students from an anonymous Mendon High School donor or donors that will allow 2 students a year for 10 years from our urban suburban program will receive a $12,500 scholarship beginning this year. At our next board meeting, I will be presenting the gift to the district for your approval. Other good news, we are starting JV and varsity sports on Tuesday, September 29th. It'll be nice to see students back on the fields. We also are very prepared for remote learning should we have to close our school district. Technology, as Darren just alluded to, has been distributed to many, many students. And our students are prepared and know how to use the different platforms and logins. We've done a lot of training with our students and staff these first couple of weeks. Also, as it relates to remote learning, for the families that selected remote learning for the beginning of the year, I want to acknowledge that we have over 100 teachers teaching at least one course in remote learning. We have added APs and we have added honors courses. We've also assigned 2 administrators to oversee remote learning to make sure it has the quality oversight needed. We've allocated 14 classroom teachers at the elementary level, along with several special education, ESL, and special area teachers, and that's for remote learning only at the elementary level. I'd also share that while it's not perfect, I'm so proud of what we're able to do and what we're able to offer, and so impressed with the commitment from our staff as it relates to doing everything possible to provide our students with as many courses as they can. In checking in with transportation, I feel so privileged to have the bus drivers that we have. They've been amazing. They've been positive. They've been supportive. They are truly hanging in there. I'd like to give a huge thank you to our PTSA for donating these lanyards to all of our students, and I believe another order is on way for all staff. Another big thank you to DeBella's Subs for providing box sub lunches to all of our staff across all 9 buildings. They did that over a 3-day period, donating and delivering to our high schools first, then our middle schools, then our 5 elementary schools. They were absolutely amazing. I also like to thank Dr. Cook for speaking to our staff prior to the start of school as it relates to COVID and answering all of our staff questions. And also like to thank Dr. Baker for volunteering his time moving forward. He's given kind of a carte blanche type of gesture to use as needed. So we're possibly going to be looking at using Dr. Baker in the next few weeks. Shifting gears a little bit, on opening day, I think it's important to share with the community an excerpt that I shared with all staff, and that was as follows. This year will be our year of working through adversity together. While this is indeed a daunting task, I'm reminded of a quote as follows. Start by doing what is necessary, then do what is possible, and suddenly you are doing the impossible. I continued by saying that the talent, the heart, and the creativity that exists within and across our schools will allow us to do the impossible together. While I know there are levels of trepidation, I also know that if any school district can pull together a successful school year, it is us. I take great pride in being part of this district because of you. Since opening day and subsequently after this message, I have to reiterate the fact that I could not be prouder of the people that I work with. From the outside, it may be difficult to see, but our staff are doing the impossible. Our drop-offs in the morning and pickups in the afternoon, given the volume, have improved immensely. We are running 3 different education models with little time to prepare. Teachers have been given up several minutes or more of planning time daily. They are spending additional time in supervision. They are teaching both in person and remote. They have learned new platforms. At the elementary levels, teachers are essentially having parents in their classroom during their lessons. Our paraprofessionals, our classroom teachers, and special area teachers have made great sacrifices to make K through 5 students be able to attend 4.5 out of the 5 days a week. And collectively, all staff are displaying a Herculean effort to make this year as productive as humanly possible. My hat goes off to all administrators, our Board of Education, teachers, paraprofessionals, secretaries, our transportation department, food service, special educators, our ESL teachers, our human resource office, our communication office, to our maintenance and custodians, our business office, athletic office, our school nurses, our unit presidents, our PTSA, our technology department and our data team, our assistant superintendent for instruction, our pupil services department, and to our entire community for all of your overwhelmingly positive messaging for the start of our school year. We know this year is not perfect, but we are doing our best to make it as perfect as possible, while we're also contending with significant additional challenges. Currently, we are working our way through a triple threat. I read an educational article this week called On Civility that describes this period as arguably the most challenging set of disruptions in our professional and personal lifetime. They describe the triple threat as being the restoration of school in the midst of a global pandemic, managing catastrophic budget reductions, and leading our communities through difficult and emotional conversations around race and equity. Any one of these challenges would cause a system to be immersed in a years-long work just to get by. But the combination of all 3 simultaneously is certainly a daunting task. Addressing these challenges have been additionally difficult as genuine community engagement feels strained in this current era. I feel that the dynamics of social media and politics today reflects a winner-takes-all mentality, as listening to one another, trying to seek for understanding, seems to be a lost art. The issues that I described are difficult, and they're not going away in our immediate future, and at the same time, they all need to be addressed. Each of these issues needs to be processed as a community and done with a sense of civility. Here's where I'm asking for your help. As we continue to work through the pandemic and its impact on school, reduce budgets at a time when we are spending more because of the pandemic, and addressing race and equity, I ask that we all be civil. I ask that we listen to one another, especially when we disagree, and that we remain open to ideas, and that we do not provoke one another, especially through social media. Right now, I worry that many see things in dichotomies. Things are either good or they're bad. They're either right or they're wrong, or it's us versus them. In reality, there are many more shades of gray that can allow us as a community to find creative and mutually beneficial outcomes to any problem that we tackle. This will take work, and it will take a commitment from all of us, and it needs to begin with a ceasefire. We have an opportunity to be civil in a period where civility is needed the most. I worry for our students about what they see on the news. Just last night, we saw wildfires, tropical storms, attempted assassination of police officers, protests for social justice, police reform, and all of this while taking in news about the global pandemic. This was last night. I think about our students of color and how they are interpreting the world right now. I think about our students who have a mom or dad or guardian in the police force. And I know that these students all attend the same school district and same community in Pittsford. It is imperative for our students to see adults as people that will help us heal. We will be doing everything in our power to invite conversations in safe places, but they have to be safe. Like today, I watched Dr. Brogan with students from Rock to Change and asking together and collectively how we can all take a part in making our community better. We will be working with the medical community to assist with decisions surrounding the pandemic. We will be working with racial consultants to assist with equity and inclusion. We'll be working with the Sheriff's Department regarding safety while also building bridges. All of this while working in a very tough budgetary year. We have a lot on our plate. So again, I ask for civility so Pittsford can lead the way through positive and sustained change moving forward. I ask that you do your best to give all of this some thought. The world that we're in right now, I've used the words before, upside down, and I'm not sure if that gives it justice. We need to do a better job as a community and looking out for our students and looking out for one another. We need to look out for human beings, and we need to do a much better job than that. I often have to look at student social media in the form of discipline. And if us as role models can't show how to use social media effectively, we're in trouble. And so I would just ask and caution all of us before we go on social media or anything, if it's a tweet or a post, that we're thinking about its impact. And as we read that post or that tweet, that we're thinking about how we will respond to it. We're human beings. We're here together. We need to focus on humanity, and we need to focus on making Pittsford a leader in how to work through a really challenging time. So I thank you all for listening to that. At this point, so I just want to talk about our board meetings in general as of now. As of yesterday, we weren't sure which way we were going. We do have a contract now that will allow us to YouTube live stream our board meetings. And then we also have a Zoom link for public comment at the end of our board meetings. And our hope is that anyone that wants to speak at public comment at the end does go on and speak during public comment. And I think it's a great time for us to model civility. I think tonight is a good time to start that dialogue and start that modeling. As we work through this new structure of our board meetings, as we continue to evolve in our board meetings, what we're not sure of yet is a delay as we get into public comment. So if you do have a public comment, I would recommend that you go on the link right now, the Zoom link, and be prepared to be let in for public comment. There may be a 30-second delay at the beginning. I want to thank the community tremendously. Overwhelmingly, the support has been outstanding. It's been refreshing. It's so good to be back in school. And just to reiterate one of the questions that has come up a few times, if your child is remote learning, your child is absolutely 100% part of the school district. And so as we begin athletics, if you're a remote learner, you have the same right as someone that is coming in for a hybrid model, for example, to participate. Hopefully our numbers, our COVID numbers, stay low, and we're able to loosen up the reins a little bit and begin to look at extracurricular activities down the road. If that's the case and you're a remote learner and there's a club or an activity after school that you're interested in, you have the same rights as anyone else because you're part of the school district. So at this point, I'm going to just ask if there's any questions from the board. Otherwise, we'll continue with the agenda.
Anyone? Thanks for that summary, Mike. That was fantastic. Okay. So may I have a motion to approve the consent agenda? Okay. All in favor? Opposed? Motion carried. Old business. New business? I do have one small thing to share for new business. There is a law conference that we've all received an email by now on the 24th of September from 8 until 12. I know that Val, you're signed up to go, and I'm signed up to go. If anyone is interested, there are 3 main topics for that session, and one is what the new Title IX regulations mean for schools, providing compensatory services to students with disabilities due to school closures, and COVID-19 and its impact on labor and employment issues. So if you have an interest, if you could let Deb know and she'll sign you up. And again, it's 8 to 12 on the 24th.
I plan to go.
Okay. Public comment. Sure. Thank you. Are we good? Stacy? Okay. Henry's on mute. Henry, can you unmute? There we go.
Hello.
Hello.
I just wanted to say, in light of the second week of school, congratulations to all of you that we've successfully got the schools open and kids are. Can you hear me?
I can hear you. There we go.
I'm sorry. Yeah, actually, it's Clayton Baker. I'm sorry, my son uses this computer as well. So, wanted to say, in light of the second week of school, congratulations to all of you that we've successfully got the schools open and kids are. Can you hear me? Hello?
Yes, continue.
Sorry, yeah, actually, it's Clayton Baker. I'm sorry, my son uses this computer as well. So, say, in light of the second week of school, congratulations to.
Okay.
Okay.
Should we make it a
Clayton, if his first name's Clayton. Clayton, if you could log out of the live stream and just stay on your connection, your other connection, and try to unmute again.
Am I feeding back now or not?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, thank you. I'm sorry I was feeding back. I just wanted to say congratulations to all that the schools are open and the kids are back, at least for the older kids part-time, but it's really positive thing from the parents' standpoint. And, it's going forward, we got a ways to go, but I just wanted to put in that thanks and congratulations that we've made it as far as we have. So thank you.
Clayton, thank you for calling in.
Hey, Matt and Anthony, is there a way to let people know in the waiting room that they need to turn off their
Live stream.
live stream? So maybe for the next caller, we share exactly that
Yep.
when he or she starts.
Okay, so the very first one won't say to her now before I let her in, or before I let her in first?
We let her in and make sure that she's off
Okay.
of the stream.
Okay, this is Vicki the parent.
Yep. Hi, Vicki.
Oh, good evening.
Hi.
Can you hear me okay?
We can.
Great, thank you. I too want to, thank our superintendent for representing the Pittsburgh community so well over these last couple of weeks. I know it's been a struggle. I'm here tonight as a representative of members of the community, some of, taxpayers and some parents who have raised some questions regarding the fiscal impact since the COVID shutdown. And I've communicated to Mike. Mike has graciously said that report is forthcoming. Thank you very much. Time is of the essence, because the tax bill is coming due. So hopefully we will get that soon. I just wanted the board aware that there is a growing group of people that have reached out, among others, who not only concerned about the fiscal impact of all of this, but just to also remind you that the taxpayers are paying for a service for educating the students in this community. And we're encouraging the school to open up schools for all of the students as soon as feasibly possible. And we did talk about this, and I think we all can appreciate that the students are better served in the classroom rather than being, in front of a computer screen for X number of hours, multiple days out of the week. That's not learning. So we would like the board to represent all of the students and getting them back into school as soon as possible. But just wanted the board to be aware that there are a number of people that have, like myself, will be looking forward to those reports prior to the tax man bill is due, so to speak. Okay?
Thank you, Vicki.
Thank you.
Mike, did you want to address?
Sure. Just as a quick response, next week we're meeting with all of us. So it's who's on the AOC? It's Renee, Ted, Irene, and then Darren and I. That will be our first time sitting down with the auditor with regards to our year-end audit. And then at that point, shortly after, we should be able to present something to the community relative to the audit report, which should be everything that you need and more.
Okay, and how will that be communicated?
Well, Darren, I don't know if you want to talk about what we do with the audit report after.
Sure. The auditor meets with the Audit Oversight Committee, which is a subcommittee of the Board of Education, and when they're satisfied with the report and the information, it's presented to the Board of Education at the next board meeting where they recommend the board adopt it. At that point, it becomes a public document. There'll be an opportunity to hear about it at that meeting as well as it gets uploaded to our website.
Okay. So it'll be on the website in a week or so. Or two.
After
I'm having a hard time hearing him.
after the September 30th board meeting.
Yep.
The next board meeting.
September 30th is the next board meeting.
Oh, okay. Great. Thank you.
Thank you, Vicki.
Thanks, Vicki.
Okay, we have one more, Jen Canning.
Okay. Hi, Jen.
Hi, everybody. I'm Jen Canning, 21 Wrights Parkway. I wanted to say thank you for the overview of the cultural proficiency programs that appeared in the fall newsletter that was sent, and that was in Mr. Perro's email from September 5th. I know I had asked about what the plan was for last August, I think, and so this gives us a great outline of that. And of course, I had some questions, and so I'll just ask one to start. There's a quote from Dr. Derek Gay, who had visited Pittsburgh schools a few years ago about you don't measure inclusion by counting your programs, you measure inclusion by asking people how they feel. And I believe that you've referenced that in your letter tonight, Mr. Perro, that you read, and in your comments, that you do wonder how our students feel. And in all these initiatives, I'm wondering how the district will be listening and responding to the voices of our students and families of color as the BOCES Council of School Superintendents list stated that that's one of the charges that they're going to be doing. What sort of follow-up has happened with the students that spoke so passionately in June at the two protests, and what sort of support are we giving to the students who are experiencing trauma from what the city of Rochester is going through in terms of the fallout from the death of Daniel Prude. I have a sample size of two kids, but I've asked them if there's been any discussion in their class, and they have said they haven't had any discussion around that issue. And so I'm just wondering what sort of direction the district and the buildings are addressing that to a larger group. I understand Pat spoke with the Rock to Change kids, but what sort of larger mechanism are we using to connect with those families? Thanks.
Thank you, Jen. So that is probably the biggest question that we have right now is the structure for reaching out to students. So one of the purposes of meeting with just a subgroup today was to look at ideas for how we bring students together in a more structured way. So one of their recommendations, and Pat, feel free to chime in more, was to look at every other week or every other period of time to work with a small group that was there today, like Rock to Change, and then in between meetings is to bring in 10 or 20 additional students. So we are working on the best way to do that. If it's a current structure that's already in place, like our student council, or do we make it a volunteer, or is it just a link that we hand out for anyone to attend? Also trying to grow our student cohort and their involvement in the Rock to Change planning is a big part of it. Our consultant will do focus groups with students while she is here, and that will be a big part for us to get feedback from our students that's unbiased. In other words, it's not students reporting to me or to the building principal. it's students reporting to a third party. And that's the feedback that we'll use along with some of the data. So the only area that I would disagree with slightly is around not using numbers at all, because I do know that when we look at our structures and systems in school, it is concerning that our students of color do not seem to have as much access to APs and honors courses as our other students. And similarly, looking at our data discipline, our students of color are significantly or proportionately higher than the rest of our student body. So I think that the approach of taking a look at our data along with how the students are talking and feeling is going to be important together. Our principals are, at our last principal meeting, which was I think on Wednesday, I also challenged them to think of a way to work with our students in their own secondary schools, because it was a secondary meeting, and understand how emotional this topic is, how real it is, and find a venue for buildings to have safe conversations. So right now, I guess, Jen, in a roundabout way, is all of us trying to make students feel safe so that we can have safe conversations with our students. We've also brought back a lot of our partners from last year that will assist us with either forums or small groups of students talking together in a safe space. So a lot of the work that we're doing with students is, I guess the best way to say it is in the planning stages, but it's now in the forefront of all that we're planning for. The lift of getting schools open and having them safe has been a huge focus, and we're feeling really good about where we're at with that, and ready to move on to making this initiative come to life in a real big way.
Just to clarify, the quote says counting your programs, not your data, and I do believe in the data. And so I guess a follow-up would be, when is the climate survey data going to be released that was analyzed?
Yeah, so our IAC committee met with recommendations, I think last week or the week before. Last week I meant to review the recommendations, and then there is an IAC meeting next week to discuss the distribution of the data.
Great, thank you.
I guess the only thing I would add is talking with the students today and how insightful they are about the role that they can play in affecting change with their peers as well as in our larger community. And I think that's going to be a real important piece of what we do going forward.
Thanks, Pat.
Thank you, Jen. Is that it? Okay, with that, we will close out public comment session. May I have a motion to adjourn, please?
So moved. Second.
Thank you. All in favor? Opposed? Motion carried.